some fairly serious trouble with the Gator. Who knew working on 50-year-old tractors could be frustrating?
Hey there, thanks for turning down my road. If this is your first time here, my name's Carl. My little brother and I both work for local farmers full-time, but we both also farm together with our cattle herd and our hay operation. Everybody's involved, from the smallest to the biggest. If you don't have the joy of farming yourself, I'd love to help you experience it through this channel. Whatever your background, you found the right place. This is Dodge Brothers Farm and Ranch.
Why, hiya, Bob. All right, the reason we drug this tractor up to the heated shop, the front end is just loose as a goose. I think it probably needs tie rods. I need to check the wheel bearings and clean them up and repack them, maybe tighten them up, hopefully not replace them. I also am in the process of getting an auxiliary loader valve for this tractor. We got to run some plumbing out underneath the seat from the hydraulics so that we can have our 2 hydraulic remotes available and still use the loader. So I've got the front end jacked up here, and you can see if I wiggle this tire back and forth, there is a whole lot of slop in that tie rod end. And obviously the reason is because the castle nut is not tight. However, what I don't know is if I'm going to be able to get this castle nut off. Also, maybe the end itself is shot. When I get it off, I'll be able to tell, and maybe it won't even, it's pretty seized up. It doesn't seem to want to move. So I think I'm going to be replacing tie rods on this tractor, at least the tie rod ends. Can't understand where all this plastic bale wrap came from. Got wound around these hubs. Just doesn't make any sense. Nice. There definitely is some wheel bearing slop too, so I need to get those hubcaps pulled off, pull the center caps off and check those bearings, see if I just need to tighten them up just a little bit, or if they're shot and need replaced. I also need to see if I can get this clamp to tighten up anymore, because the whole, look at the whole unit there is putting all the pressure on this pin. So I need to see if I can get this clamp tightened up, if the threads will still work, those nuts will still turn, because I need to get that tightened up on here. Well, I got this bolt out and it's not in fabulous shape. I'm gonna see what I can do to try to get these threads cleaned up here, see if I can get those nuts to go on any further. All right, that settles it right here. I was cleaning the threads and there's a bunch of threads actually missing right in here. I don't know if you can see or not. You look at this angle. So I'm just gonna stack some washers in there. Well, that's what I was afraid of. I've got the tube all the way closed and it's still not holding it. So there's enough wear in there from the years of not being tight that I'm gonna have to figure out another way to tighten that up. I'm gonna have to get something inside there to kind of shim it together. Okay, so I found this piece of roof tin, used roof tin that I was able to cut off in a nice rectangular bendy fashion, and I'm going to try to stick this in there to shim it up. The goal is to get this piece wrapped around and basically fit in there like so, but obviously under there to fill in that gap so that I can hopefully tighten it up and get it to actually hold really well with the clamp. Who knew working on 50-year-old tractors could be frustrating? Well, that shim worked like a charm. Let's dig into the wheel bearings and see what we're up against here. Look at how dry this big bearing is right here. It's got no grease in it at all. Yeah, look at how wore out this thing is. I mean, that is awful. These wheel bearings are shot. They definitely need replaced. There's so much dirt in that grease. These seals have been out for a while. That's not good at all. Oh, smells like fire. So right now I'm pounding the old bearing races out, and then we'll clean all the grease out of the hub and get the new bearing races pounded in and get the new seals put in and pack the new wheel bearings and put it all back together. I've got a hub in the vise here that I've got the wheel bearings out of, got the races pounded out of, and it used to have, well, it still does sort of, but it had a broken off lug bolt stuck right here. You can see that? Maybe you can't. There, is that better? You might be able to see I drilled a hole in it because I was trying to get an easy out threaded into it, and that wasn't gonna work. But I just had success. I welded a lug bolt on the back side that was sticking through the other side of the hub. And check this out. It's turning. Look at that. I'm gonna get it out. We are once again gonna have 6 lug bolts in each one of the front wheels. We only had 4 in the left front and 5 in the right front. So that's a big improvement. Maybe with a loader on the front carrying round bales around, it'd be a pretty good idea to have all your lug nuts, bolts, lug bolts. I did stop in town and pick up a tap that was perfectly sized for these lug bolts so that I can clean the threads out. Some of them were pretty rusted up and nasty. This will be really nice. Well, this is the seal cup that drives onto the spindle before you slide the hub on, and it is nasty, rotted, rusted, and of course they didn't include this in the bearing and seal kit, so back to the dealership. We got some fairly serious trouble with the Gator. It started making a weird clunking noise while we were driving it. Take a look at this. Okay, this is the variable speed clutch. Look at this pulley here. I don't know if you can see or not, but there is a big chunk missing out of it. Right here, clear over to right here. It's just broken right off. So I got all the parts from the John Deere store to replace it. And there's a special puller that I had to borrow from the guys in the shop at the Gator department down there at John Deere. And hopefully that's gonna get this pulley off. It sounds like it's kind of a booger. Hopefully this puller does the job. Let's give it a try. So this puller is supposed to go clear inside there, and this end butts up against the crankshaft, and then the threads thread into the pulley and it yanks it right out. That's the idea. So for all of the hype about how hard that was going to be, I can't believe it. That was the easiest thing I've ever done. Everybody in the shop said that it was going to be a real chore and you had to beat on it and it might not come off. You might have to heat it. That's embarrassing. Anyway, that was good. That was easy. So there's the new clutch. As you can see, it's a lot less broken than the old clutch. When that came apart, it actually also broke the plastic shrouds that protect all that equipment from dirt and dust. So we got new plastic shrouds, an outer one and an inner one. Well, that's all back together. Obviously putting on the plastic shrouds is no big deal. Got everything torqued to spec. Now it's time to take it for a quick test drive. Make sure everything is okay. Well, that felt like success to me. Now, if that old tractor project could go as easily as the Gator project did, that'd be fantastic. Just got to keep working on it.
Big thank you and shout out to my wife for running over to the AGCO dealer and picking up these seal cups for me today. So in case you're not familiar with how this works, this is the bearing and this is the bearing race. And this is going to get driven down in here. And then the bearing drops into the bearing race and spins in there. We've also got to pack this bearing full of grease because it doesn't have any grease in it right now. Now my favorite way to do this is to just find a socket that matches up perfectly size-wise with the race. And that way, you don't want to be beating on the face of the bearing race with the hammer directly. There. You want to make sure that that is properly seated all the way around because you don't want your bearing race to not be square with the hub. Then this is what the seal looks like. It's just got a big rubber lip that sticks out and then pushes against that seal cup. And then this seal runs against that cup. That's how it works. So I just drive this in here really gently. It's kind of a weird seal, so I'm just using a screwdriver behind the rubber lip. All right, look at this cool tool to pack the wheel bearings. You just drop your bearing right in there, put the cap on and screw it all the way down. And then you got a grease fitting right here and you just pump your grease gun and the grease will come out through the bearing. And now I can just smear grease all around the outside of it and it's good to go. I'm just going to use the tip of my finger to take some clean new grease here and get it on the axle shaft before I try to slide the bearings over. I'm also making sure to get some on the face of that seal cup, and I also want to get some new clean grease on the face of the rubber seal inside the hub before I put that on. That seal is really important. That's what's going to keep dust and dirt and debris and water and everything out of the bearings, and it's going to keep the grease in the bearings, but it won't last very long if you don't have it lubricated. Now that I've got the hub gently slid on there, I'm going to take the small cone bearing and insert it into the outside race over the shaft on the outside of the hub. And then this particular setup does not have a washer. I've never seen one like this, but it's not even on the parts list when you go to AGCO and look up the Oliver parts diagram. The castle nut just goes right on outside of that cone bearing. So normally I'm just used to tightening the castle nut until you experience a little bearing drag and then backing it off one notch, and that's considered good. But this seal cup and the seal drag against each other a little bit all the time anyway, the way this is designed. So it makes it a little difficult, but I got all the slop out of it. Here's a fun fact. Did you know that a castle nut is called a castle nut because it looks like the top of a castle? See how it's got all those notches around the nut? That's for the cotter pin to slide through the hole on the shaft. That way, the nut can't turn when the wheel is rotating while you're driving down the road. The last thing you would want is for that castle nut to come off while you're rolling down the road and your whole hub would just slide off the spindle. Not good at all. Well guys, I didn't get nearly as much done on this tractor as I was hoping to this week. The front end needed a lot more work than I thought it was going to. We had to wait for some parts.
I've been trying my darndest to get a few of these plugs out on top of the hydraulic unit, and I am not able to get any of them to move. Even with the big 3/4 inch impact wrench, I'm sort of working on a plan of what I'm gonna do to try to get them out. I don't really wanna heat them too much. There's hydraulic oil right behind them, and I don't wanna catch the tractor on fire, so I might have to take it apart a little further than I wanted to. But this week is gone, next week is another one. Thank you so much for watching. Thanks for liking, commenting, and subscribing. If you're not a subscriber yet, why not? It doesn't cost anything. Just go ahead and hit that little red button and the bell right next to it, and you'll never miss another video. As always, thanks for riding along. I'll see you next week.